Hey everybody in microeconomics land. Today we are going to take a look at how to solve problem number 5 in homework 4. This is one of the problems looking at willingness to pay, firm costs, and producer surplus and consumer surplus. But it's weird. It's actually a lot like the very first problems we looked at when we talked about economic welfare. Remember, at the very beginning of the slides, we talked about 4 people with their willingness to pay for an Apple Watch and 3 firms and their costs associated with painting lawns. This is really similar to that. In this case, we're talking about 4 consumers willing to pay certain amounts for haircuts and 4 salons or 4 firms with different costs. And the first question asks, if each salon can only give 1 haircut, how many haircuts are efficient? So every firm gives 1 haircut, every consumer receives 1 haircut. We want to graph demand and supply for those haircuts. And the hint I give you guys is this is going to help you find the equilibrium, and it's not going to be a straight line. What does that mean? Well, let's think about it. First, what we have here is I've written them down. The willingness to pay for our 4 people. We have Sam is willing to pay $35 for a haircut. Lorenzo will pay $50. Neha will pay $40, and Janice will pay $25. Then we have firm costs. Firm A can do a haircut for $25. Firm B can give a haircut for $40. Firm C can give a haircut for $30. And Firm D can supply a haircut to the market for $45. So we want to start in our supply and demand framework with our quantity down here and our price up here. And what we have here is all the information we need. Remember, demand curves give us consumer willingness to pay, and supply curves are based on the cost associated with production for the marginal firm. So let's start with the demand side. And remember, so we've got willingnesses to pay ranging from $50 to $25 and costs ranging from $45 to $25. So that's how I'm going to break up my price axis. I'm going to say that's $50, so that's $25. And that'll be, let's see, 50, 40, 30, 20, 25, 10. Let's say between 10 and 0. Let's say that's 15. And that's, we'll put 35 there. And then for the quantity side, we only have 4 people looking for haircuts and 4 firms. So we're not going to have a quantity greater than 4. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is a quantity of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So far, so good? All right. To derive the demand curve, we have to see who's going to enter this market at every price. So any price above $50, no one is willing to pay for a haircut. Who has the highest willingness to pay of all of these consumers? Lorenzo. Lorenzo's willing to pay $50 for a haircut. Maybe Lorenzo hadn't gotten a haircut, and then all of a sudden in February, he's like, I need a haircut. And then the world locked down, and he's like, oh no, now I have to go almost a year without a haircut. So Lorenzo has a very high willingness to pay. So the quantity associated with this market for haircuts is 0 up until the point where we get to 50. And then at 50, we're going to see 1 haircut be demanded by Lorenzo. Does that make sense? Hopefully some of you are already starting to say like, oh. Okay, so Lorenzo enters the market first. He has the highest willingness to pay. After that, no one else wants to pay for a haircut for a while. Who has the next highest willingness to pay? Well, Lorenzo will pay 50, Sam 35, Neha 40, and Janice 25. Neha has the next highest willingness to pay. She'll pay $40 for a haircut. So at a price of $40, we're going to see that quantity demanded go from 1 to 2. So now at a price of 40, there are 2 haircuts being demanded in this market. Starting to see where I'm going? Let's keep knocking it out. Who has the next lowest willingness to pay? We've already done Lorenzo at $50. Neha at 40. Now we've got Janice at 25 and Sam at 35. Sam enters the marketplace next at $35. So I'm going to go down until I get to $35 and then go over to a quantity of 3, right? Make sense? Then the last consumer with willingness to pay is Janice at $25. Janice is like me. She's a cheapo. She's like, I'll cut my own hair. I don't care. I'm not paying that much money. So we see the quantity stay at a queue of 3 until the price drops down to $25. You see that? So only one person will buy a haircut from $50 to $41. At $40, Neha enters the market, but no one else enters again until the price drops down to $35. And then no one else wants a haircut until the price drops down to $25. And that's when Janice enters the market. We get a quantity of 4, and that's our demand curve. Does that kind of make sense? Hopefully. All right. If not, let me know in the comments or in the discussion. The next thing we want to do is our supply curve. And that's going to go the same way as the demand curve went, except remember the supply curve looks at firms with the lowest cost entering the market first, right? The supply curve starts at the origin. So we're going to see the firm with the lowest cost enter the market first. So who has the lowest cost with respect to giving haircuts? Firm A, right? Firm A can do it for $25, firm B for $40, firm C for $30, and firm D for $45. So no one is willing to supply any haircuts to the market until we get up to $25. And then one haircut is supplied to the market by firm A. Now we have a quantity of 1 supplied. How high does the price have to be for the quantity to increase to a quantity of 2? Well, that depends on who's going to enter the market next. Firm D has a cost of $45, firm B has a cost of $40, but firm C has the next lowest cost at $30. So they will, when the price rises up to $30, enter the market, and we'll get a quantity of 2. So far, so good? Now, the next lowest cost is going to be firm B. They will supply another haircut to the market at a price of $40. So we want to drag our supply curve up to 40. And that's when we move over to a quantity of 3 haircuts. Starting to see how it's going. And then the last, where'd my black marker go? The last willingness to, or the last cost of the last firm is going to be over here. We'll get a quantity of 4 when we get up to $45. And that's our supply curve. Does that make sense? Kinda. So it's just like what we looked at before. Instead of having, like we normally assume in a market, hundreds of buyers and sellers, we just have 4 consumers and 4 producers. And so we have these stair-step supply and demand curves. Now, how many haircuts are efficient? Well, at a price of $25, 1 haircut is supplied, and 1 haircut would be consumed by the person with the highest willingness to pay. At a price of $35, 2 haircuts would be supplied because firm A would supply haircuts for $35 and firm C would supply haircuts for $35 and Lorenzo would pay $35 and Neha would pay $35. But if we move beyond that point, if we want to try and include Sam, he'd also pay for a $35 haircut. Is there a third firm that would supply a $35 haircut? No. And here's where it's kind of useful to count these things out. So I'm going to come over here and move this so I can give you another perspective on it. So the other thing you can think of is ordering these in terms of who's going to enter the market first. So for the firms, the firm with the lowest cost enters first. So first comes firm A, then firm C, then firm B, then firm D. In terms of willingness to pay, the consumers with the highest willingness to pay enter the market first. So the The first highest willingness to pay is Lorenzo, number 1, then Neha, then Sam, and then Janice. So if we think about it kind of like the market's like a bidding war, what we can see is firm A enters first with a cost of $25, and Lorenzo is willing to pay $50. That is a good exchange. They'll do that. Next, Neha enters willing to pay $40, and firm C enters willing to take $30. That's another equitable deal. They'll both agree to that. For the third haircut to take place, Sam is only willing to pay $35, and firm B has a cost of $40. So firm B won't be willing to accept Sam's $35, and Sam won't be willing to pay firm B's $40. So that's why our equilibrium quantity is going to be 2 haircuts. Does that kind of make sense? Kinda? Hopefully. The idea here is we want to compare the willingness to pay of each of our individuals to the costs of each of our firms. The next question asks which firms should cut hair, and we should see firm A and firm C cut hair. Who should get haircuts? Lorenzo and Neha. They have the highest willingnesses to pay. Calculating the maximum total surplus is easy. We just look at the difference between willingness to pay and cost, and we say that, okay, Lorenzo has a willingness to pay $50. Neha has a willingness to pay of $40, and they're going to have to pay for those haircuts $25 and $30. So that's kind of illegible. The total surplus is going to be, let's do this, $50 plus $40 minus $25 minus $30, or a total surplus of $90 minus $55, or a $35 total surplus or total welfare, depending on what you want to call it. Make sense? Pretty clear, hopefully? You could use this to think about question 3. If you're having problems with question 3, think about it the exact same way. You've got the willingness to pay, or the value of these 2 individuals, and the quantity supplied by the market. And you can kind of think of it the same way, as the same kind of marginal decision based on who has the highest willingness to pay and who has the lowest cost. Okay? Hopefully this helps. Let me know what questions you have. Otherwise, I'll see you next time, and have a great rest of the day.